after the game was over, I was Lily and I sat out on the porch and watched the evening games. And Lily looked at me and said, "Dad, you know why we lost that game?" I was like, "Why, Lily?" And she says, "Because we didn't let them score in the first drive." Welcome to My God Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, John Powell and I review Georgia's 27-24 loss to Alabama in the SEC Championship game. And we talk about the college football playoff selection. As always, remember to check out the newly redesigned MyGottaPodcast.com to see our latest merch. And you can follow us on social media at MyGottaPodcast. Finally, we'd love for you to check out our presenting sponsor, Oxia Time, at OxiaTime.com. That's AXIATIME.com. Now, let's join the conversation in progress. Like legitimate conversation in progress.
Seriously. Oh, man. So many things. So many things.
Just as we predicted.
Just as we predicted.
I'll tell you this. All right. So I had 31-21. You had 33-18 for obvious reasons. Wasn't that far off. But what do we say? Georgia is the better team. You protect the football. You win the game. We had the only turnover. The only turnover led to 3 Alabama points, and we lost by 3. So we needed. I know we had more conversations after recording, and a lot of stuff we had talked about with Hunter. Like the 30 was the number. If Georgia can get to 30 points, we're going to win the game. I think that was accurate, and 30 points were there. We could have scored 30. I would say we should have scored 30. And if we didn't, we would have won.
If you factor in everything that we just talked about, like a free field goal off of a turnover, if a play is reviewed, I'm not convinced as others are that it would have been ruled an incomplete pass, but that wipes another 7 points off, and you really are sitting at right around 33-18.
Yeah,
which would have been amazing.
I will say I'm not convinced it would have been either because of who we were playing, and I fell into the trap of believing that because we were number one and we had won 29 in a row and we were the college kings of the kings of college football, that we would get the calls. And I'll never fool myself like that again. So something I was poking around a minute ago, and I was like, oh, I found it. I was thinking to myself, who was it that asked in the listener questions, how many points are the refs going to cost us? And it was Brett. It was Brett Belding. So Brett, apologies, we didn't take your question serious enough. The answer is 13. The answer is 13 points. The non-reviewed fourth down catch, if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not watching YouTube, I just did air quotes. If that's correctly ruled an incompletion, there's no touchdown there. That's 7. I don't know. Whatever. Maybe it's just 7.
Maybe it's just 7. I was about to say, how do we get to 13?
I guess the 13-point swing was just the other thing. I guess, not the refs. So definitely 7. I don't know, man. Although I can't remember which drive it was, the horse collar that wasn't.
All right. So let's talk about it. So for me, watching this game was probably one of the more frustrating experiences that I've had in recent memory, of watching a team do everything that it could to try to get itself into a position to win, only to be thwarted by a defense that is so physical and so aggressive to the point where they're committing what I felt like were pretty obvious penalties. In my review, I actually had to review, like I was watching it. After watching everything, I kind of like was messaging you throughout the game, like, oh my God, why are they not calling any of these holds? Why are they not calling pass interference for anything?
Yeah.
And I did not feel like that there was anything reciprocal coming from the Georgia sideline, or the Georgia side of things, that was anywhere near what they were doing. It felt incredibly one-sided. Um, and I don't want to sit here and say that the refs cost us the game, because it wasn't the referees that decided to run toss sweep on 3rd and short multiple times. It wasn't the referees that decided to play hurt wide receivers at times that were very clearly hobbling. It wasn't it wasn't the referees that false started. It wasn't the referees that missed a field goal.
Wasn't the referees that fumbled in an end around.
It wasn't the referees that fumbled a completely wide open play that had been truly artfully created by Bobo throughout the game.
Yeah.
It was almost like he heard Gary talk about Dylan Bell coming around the formation on a misdirection, completely wide open.
Yeah.
And Bobo went right back to it. It was perfectly set up. It would have been a huge gain, and we just didn't execute. And it wasn't the referees that allowed Jalen Milroe to basically storm down the field when we needed to stop him in the fourth quarter on the last second drive, where we absolutely would have had more time to try to do something miraculous to at least force an overtime.
Yeah.
But all of that said, it wasn't the referees that couldn't get to the quarterback where he had 8 seconds to throw the ball at times.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, he lived up to holding the ball longer than anyone in the SEC because we just let him.
I did not have in my bingo card that we could not get to Milroe with 8 seconds to go after him at times. Now that said, I mean, we did sack him 4 times, which was, pretty impressive.
And we did it on the first drive.
We did on the first drive. Anyway, it wasn't the referees that did all those things.
Yeah.
We didn't nearly throw 2 interceptions. They didn't nearly throw 2 interceptions, which Alabama dropped.
Yeah.
So there's all those things, right? Yes, we got whooped. The offensive line, the defensive line throughout the game got whooped. I also think that they did some whooping throughout the game as well. But all of that said, there were at least I'm trying to think here. There were at least 7 different plays that I went back and took videos of and posted on Twitter, and some of you have probably seen them because I've seen all the replies and all of the impressions. But that said, I mean, it was pretty obvious that at least if you want to take issue with 1 or 2 of the videos that I posted, then I've got three others that are right behind it that were at crucial moments. Plays that would have extended drives. In my opinion, one of the most egregious ones was the Kendall Milton face mask on one of the series that led to us having to, kick a field goal.
Yeah.
Kendall Milton was pulled down by his face mask inside the 20-yard line. And I think it was inside the 20, if I remember correctly. But either way, it would have ended up in a 1st and goal situation for us. In the end, we ended up taking a field goal. That right there, if you just isolated that one play, that is a play that the referees cost Georgia the game.
Right.
On 4th and 2, or on fourth and what was the 4th down?
It was fourth and 4.
4th and 4. So a 4th down play at right around midfield, if I remember correctly, right, Jim?
Are we talking about the non-reviewed pass?
The non-reviewed pass, yeah.
No, it was closer. It was. I mean, they were on our side of the field. I know that.
Okay, but it was still like it would have been really good field position for us had that play.
Oh yeah.
Overturned.
Yes.
A 4th down play. 2 plays later, they scored points off of it. Could we have stopped them? Sure, but that's another.
We did stop them. Sorry, because he didn't catch that ball. My opinion. I've seen people say like, yes, he did. It wouldn't have changed. I mean, yes, the ball can touch the ground. No, the ball can't move when it touches the ground, and the ball moved. So I don't know. Whatever.
It would have been interesting to see the review. I could be swayed one way or the other. But anyway, there were multiple plays. I mean, we had a defender literally pulled down from behind on a play. We had guys that looked like they were trying to hockey fight Chaz Chambliss by pulling his jersey off.
Yeah.
we had guys that were running by free on their defensive line, and an arm reaches out and literally impedes their pass rush. Like it's just there was just an inordinate. I mean, Brock Bowers, God bless him. I kind of wish that he was a better actor than he is tight
Yeah.
end, because
Yeah.
I feel like he could have made a meal of that. I feel like that the pass interference play that was called against Malachi Starks, Burton just stopped running.
Yeah.
And what is the cornerback supposed to do? And frankly, as soon as Burton stopped running, he turned around and looked at the ball and was looking for the ball. I'm being told that because Ladd McConkey's defender was looking at the ball and reaching for the ball, that it's okay for him to tackle Ladd McConkey because he's trying to play the ball. That's what Alabama people are telling me about Ladd McConkey play, but they're completely ignoring the Malachi Starks play. That
Yeah.
extended an Alabama drive, and the Ladd McConkey one pretty much ended a Georgia drive.
I mean, to me, the whole thing, like, it was an evenly matched game. If you look at the stats are almost identical between the two teams. I'm like, first downs, third down conversions, which third down conversions weren't very good for either team, by the way. But yards, everything very similar. It was a turnover, right? It was the difference. But, I mean, to me, I keep boiling it down to 3 plays, and I'll just go in order of when they happened, not in importance or anything like that. But it was number one is the false start that took us out of field goal range. Payday makes that field goal from 45 yards. He missed it from 50. That was the first one. The second one we already talked about. It was the other two we already talked about. I guess we've already talked about all 3 of them. But there's that. The second one is the fourth down completion, whether you want to call it or not. If we stop them there on fourth down, we have the ball back down 10-7 with time to score at the end of the first half. Right. I think it was a bad call, whatever. And then the other one is the fumble. So the end around fumble, the turnover. Like you said, the play was there. It was wide open. Bell was running for, I think he gets at least 15 yards, if not a lot more. There's potentially a lot more. Instead, Bama has the ball right there. Kudos to the defense for holding him to 3. The game could have been over right there if they let him score a touchdown, and they kept the game alive, kept us alive. That was a heck of a stand. So, because I know, like, I was kind of being kind of harsh on the defense, and I think you've corrected me through text messages. They played well. I will say, after the game was over, Lily and I sat out on the porch and watched the evening games. And Lily looked at me and said, "Dad, you know why we lost that game?" I was like, "Why, Lily?" And she says, "Because we didn't let them score in the first drive."
Lily.
Which, like, I kind of feel like they Georgia'd us.
They did. They really did.
Like, we scored like that, and then they shut us down. Like, they did to us what we did to everyone all year. It was kind of weird. Now we know what that feels like now, I guess. So that was tough. I mean,
that's all right. So I don't want to like, come harshly down on you or whatever, but like, I feel the defense did more than enough to win the game.
You are correct.
Alabama had previously won like 54 of 55 games or something like that when they were the first team that scored. So immediately, right off the bat, we eliminated that.
Yeah.
So in a game that is pretty big in magnitude, like that had to have been a win, because Kirby joked about it earlier in the year that that's just what we do. So to stop a team like that from scoring had to have felt like a win, a substantial win for the defense, just symbolically.
But with what seemed like a really good plan, right? Because it was like we did the spy thing, but we had like a spy with a delayed blitz, like that Jalen Walker sack on that first 3 and out. It was amazing. You're like, oh my gosh, like if this is what we're going to do. I will say, to your point, like earlier you were saying, like, and I know Gary talked about it a lot, like at some point, when do you have to put in a healthy receiver instead of the injured guys? But I would say too, like Jalen Walker only played like 12 snaps, which seems a little odd, especially the way the game started out there. I could be over exaggerating with 12, but it was under 15 from what I remember. Seemed
Yeah,
kind of weird.
I don't know. I mean, I wasn't really paying attention to that side of things. Like I felt like that no matter what we ended up deciding on the defensive side, I felt like that they did enough. Um,
I think they
like
did. I mean, I
like
think they did. I mean, I would have liked to held
here's
them to below 27, but again, like I said, I feel like we, in
I
theory,
mean
did.
in
They were
theory, like
gifted
I
7 points.
said, right. I feel like that in theory we kind of did, but the only thing that I would say that let's talk about the defense, I guess, since we're talking about the defense right now, and we can get to the offense for Craig in just a second. Um, but from the defensive side, like I don't know. So here's one of the issues that I have with the approach on defense. We're saying two linebackers spy, right? That
Hmm.
means that those two guys, that means 2 out of 11 guys are just standing there waiting.
Yeah,
Did we need to?
right.
Could we have done something different to maybe like not have two guys occupied because
Hmm.
of a potential threat of Milrow? And then when the game came down to it, he was able to do
He's
exactly what we were
he still
afraid
did it at that on
of
that last
doing.
drive. Yeah,
Right. Like
yeah.
we waited to the very end to get super aggressive when it was too late. I don't know. I guess that I like the approach at the beginning, but when it was becoming clear that the quarterback was holding the ball far longer than he should have been able to against a team of this talent level, I don't know. I just question for how long we did that. Does that make sense? Like,
It does. It does. And I think what's frustrating is, something that Jeff Dancer talks a lot about on the Bulldog Brunch, right? And those guys, Jeff and Kevin, talk about is like complementary football, right? And each side of the ball helping each other out. And, you know, 3 and out to start the game. Awesome. The Georgia offense comes out and it looks like what we did to TCU on that first drive is the best thing I could compare it to. March down the field, score like it was nothing. And then, I mean, Bama punted again, right? On the next drive. We get the ball back and then we go 3 and out, right? I mean, it's just like the Alabama offense was not doing much early and our defense was shutting them down and we didn't extend that lead. We scored 7 points in the first drive and that was it for the entire first half. We never did anything after that. I mean, other than the one drive that resulted in the missed field goal, but other than that, like we didn't do anything. So
so
that's where it's
are we
disappointing. Huh?
are we pivoting to talk about the offense now?
Well, I'm just saying. So one thing I was going to joke
Because
about.
you can't have that without having a conversation about the offense
That's
because
my yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is like the offense didn't like. I felt like the defense was like so good in the beginning of the game, and the offense let them down, right? By just 3 and out, kept giving the ball back, and then it gave Alabama a life, right? And then once if you keep not scoring, eventually their offense is going to figure something out. And our defense is having to stay on the field because our offense keeps going 3 and out. Like that time on the field hurts your defense too. So we did not play good complementary football in this game, I guess is my point.
right, right. Yeah. I mean, Bama opened the game with 2 punts and a field goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, we had a touchdown, 2 punts, missed field goal.
Yeah. Dude, Brett
Um,
Thorson's had to be ice in his leg on Sunday. That's the most
he
he's like ever punted.
Yeah, he worked out. I think one of them was like a 60-yard punt too.
I
I mean, I think I
he was
texted
impressive. He was
I
impressive.
I I texted the guys. I was like, Brett is a effing monster.
Oh yeah, man. I
And
mean,
I said before the game that pinning them back was I think it was something that I had kind of looked at after the podcast or whatever. Like,
mhm.
I had noticed that, when they were pinned back and forced to go down the field, that they did not do very well at that in the past. And they actually did it pretty well against us. They had a 92 yard drive after that, which it had to have been to a certain element like soul crushing for the defense. But
Yeah.
then all of a sudden we had a 7 play Sorry, not a 40, a 13-yard play, 7-minute drive is what I meant to say. We had a
All right.
7-minute and 27-second drive.
And that was the one that resulted in the missed field goal, right?
That was the one that resulted in the missed field goal. And if you go back and look at my favorite metric, the game cast, the ESPN win predictability or win probability percentage, when we missed that field goal is when things started going very heavily into the Alabama favor. Like it was already kind of like 50-50 at that point, which, before the game, it was 60 something in our favor. It went to
Hmm.
like almost 69%, 70% when we missed that field goal.
Got it.
That's the game of inches. That's the game of possessions matter against this team. And Graham kind of mentioned in his 12 takeaways when you're trying to. I'm curious to know what your feelings are about it because, like, maximize his comment, Graham's comment about maximizing possessions against this team. Um, I tend to agree, man. Like, I mean, it took a long time for us to get nothing out of that drive. And then you go back and look at some of the pace of play, all those kinds of things that Graham was talking about. And a lot of that has to do, in my opinion, when Amari Spims went out of the game.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that a lot of people keep ignoring. Um, I agree. I mean, so I will say that is something that we had, and that Graham has talked about all year. I'll give him some flowers on that. Is right, like needing to be more explosive, and not you can't always have 13 play. You know, all these like 5 yard chunk, 5 yard chunk, 5 yard chunk and score. You do need to be explosive at times, and we've heard Kirby say that too. Kirby said that post game in one game. I can't remember when it was. Um, so I agree. I think my counter to that one drive we were talking about was we had been going 3-and-out so often, and Alabama had held the ball for a bit. I felt like a good long drive there did do us some good to get the defense some rest, but then you missed the field goal. Was really a backbreaker. But I think on the mid,
Yeah,
on
I
the mid,
had
good.
I had looked at and looking talking about how long they had the ball. I think they had the ball for almost 10 minutes
Yeah,
up until the missed field goal. And we had the ball like little under 7 minutes. So like, I
yeah,
mean, I get it, but like their drives weren't these massive drives. Like their longest drive was their field goal, and that was 8 plays for 3 minutes and 48 seconds. Everything else was like a minute 30, 53 seconds, you know,
yeah,
3 minutes, 4 minutes. Like
right.
I don't think that they were that as gassed as you maybe think that they would have been, particularly with how quickly we're rotating. I just think that we got outcoached, honestly. Like, I mean, we lost our best offensive lineman and then proceeded to run like what, 6 plays, 6 straight run plays.
Yeah, so let's talk about Mims because I think that's a big thing I've been focusing on. When we talk about like Georgia this season offensively and the early, I guess people being disappointed, whereas the offenses against TCU, et cetera. We lost Mims and he had tightrope surgery, right? Wasn't he like the first guy to get tightrope surgery this year?
Hmm.
And when Mims came back, all of a sudden the offense started clicking. And so that's the thing, because when Mims went down in this game, that's when things turned and we were not as productive. A lot of those tosses that we're talking about were away from where Mims had vacated. So we're going to the left, tossing to the left towards Green, and Bowers. And they were ready for it. We've seen Saban has talked about what they changed and how they changed where their safeties were and what they were rushing. And just felt like that they could control with rushing 4 and dropping back 2 safeties. And I mean, it worked. I mean, we blew the doors off them on the first drive. They made an adjustment. The adjustment worked, and we lost our starting right tackle. And I mean, there was something going on. Like, I mean, we couldn't protect as well. Beck was under duress, and I don't know. It was like it took us a while to figure out what to do or something. And I think it was really telling when we just went to the half at the end of the first half and
Yeah,
like let the clock ran out.
instead of just like throwing a bomb, like just give
Yeah,
me
like do
something,
do
do
something.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was
I
I thought that was weird.
I thought that was really weird as well. I mean, there's 3 seconds left. Like, what are they going to do?
Yeah,
Like, you just arm punt it? Like, I mean,
right.
I don't know. Yeah. I completely hated that one as well. But like, all right, so you talk about that. Like, okay, so I'm not sure exactly which series, like, was it right after the touchdown that he went out, or like
Like
what?
when did Mims go down?
Yeah,
It
like
was really early.
okay.
Um,
Let's just for argument's sake say that it was after the first series.
sure.
So the next series that everybody keeps talking about, like, oh, we ran 6 straight run plays. Well, like those 6 straight run plays or whatever. All right, so it had to have been after the second series because in one of the punt plays, like passing complete Brock Bowers, passing complete Lad McConkey, passing complete
I
Brock
was gonna say
Bowers.
it wasn't. We didn't just run. That's people aren't remembering it correctly.
Hold on, no, but no, we did, and I'll get
Eventually,
I'll get to that
like
I'll get to
later, I
that
would
part
say
in a second. It
the
had to have
first
been the next.
series.
It had to
Okay,
have
because
been the
the
next
I
series.
say because the first series after the touchdown was three passes. I
Correct.
remember that. Yeah,
Yeah, and one of those was the deep pass to Brock Bowers that was basically armed assault.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Okay.
I can't even with that play, man. Okay, so let's go back to our next series. So the defense goes 8 plays, 26 to 28 yards, 3 minutes, 48 seconds. They kicked the field goal. It was 7-3. So Georgia takes over. Um, Georgia takes over. Dejon Edwards run. Dejon Edwards run. Dejon
That one.
Edwards. Like those were big plays. Those were big plays right there.
So that was the what I here's what I can't remember, and I don't. I have not rewatched the game because I don't think I really care to. I've gone back and looked for like the only thing I went back to look at was the reverse. But there was so that this drive you're talking about, there was two successful runs to start.
Yeah.
And then it was 3rd and 2. And that was I know we ran a toss sweep to the left and we lost a yard. Was that the play where we had to call timeout because like everything was
hmm
like
It was all messed up.
it was like disarray?
That was the play when Beck came off the field and said, "WTF are we doing?"
Right. Which, and I don't know if that was on the play call or like it, because like he was having to tell everyone where to go. It was like no one knew what to do except Beck. Like Beck was like, no, go here, no, go there, like to everyone. Like it was crazy. It was really weird. So we called timeout, and then we came out of timeout and we ran the toss sweep to the left, which, like I love the toss sweep. Like and the toss sweep has been effective this season. It did not work against Alabama for whatever reason. Coaches can be stubborn. I have seen Bobo be stubborn in the past. I'm telling you, he saw something on film that told him the toss sweep was going to be there, and he convinced him, and he like wouldn't let the results of the game change his mind. And
Yeah,
that's a very football coach thing to do.
which that I feel like that you just spoke like music to the Bobo hater's soul because if I'm sitting in as an unbiased as observer, watching that your conversation, and I'm a Bobo hater, I'd probably say, "See, I told you."
Yeah. Okay, Craig.
No. Okay, so here's
Craig, I love you. Craig.
So here's my issue with I'll counter that with Caleb Downs exhibited that he is going to absolutely missile into every single outside run that we threw at them. It
Mhm.
happened all game long. And it happened all throughout the entirety of the first half too. Like it wasn't just like a surprise. Like I mean, Gary Danielson even talked about it. Like everybody likes to hate on Gary, but man, dude, he called a great game in this game. He rightfully so identified Caleb Downs as an absolute destroyer of the Georgia offense. And
Yeah.
I'll highlight something that I feel like that I'm not an X's and O's guy by any stretch of the imagination, but I will say that I felt watching the game that there were multiple times when we were running plays into the teeth of different aspects of Alabama's game. They had so many guys so close to the line of scrimmage.
Mhm.
Like there were times when I was like, man, why are the safeties so close to the line of scrimmage? Like they knew that we were going to do certain things at certain times. Maybe it's because of formations, or because of tendencies and down and distance and all those kinds of things. I mean, Alabama has an army of analysts just like we do to try to pick up on those things.
Yeah.
Why don't you pivot and say, hey, these guys are too close to the line of scrimmage. They know what we're doing. Let's pivot to something else. Let's pivot to, let's pivot to a fly. You know what I mean? Like
Well, because
send someone that's faster than their guys, because that was something that I saw, and we talked about it on the offensive side, was that I personally feel that someone like a CJ Smith or an Anthony Evans might have been faster straight line and cuts than some of the guys that were hurt. And
so
I recognize that people made big plays in that game, but frankly, like they were so wide open that I feel like anybody could have made those catches in our game.
so a couple of things. One, on like, they're getting up close, and so let's take a shot. I mean, Beck didn't have the time. I will say that. Like, that's my counter, is like we couldn't protect very well. We couldn't protect as well as usual. I mean, Becky is usually going through games totally clean. He gets the ball out of his hands super fast as part of that. So I don't know. I'm assuming
He was pretty clean though. Like they only had
yeah,
one
but
sack.
yeah, but he was under duress. He was under duress and like almost threw. I mean, you said 2 picks. I feel like he almost threw 4. Like there was, I mean, they didn't get any, but they dropped them. I mean, let's be honest, right? Like they dropped multiple interceptions. The other thing is, dude, the McConkey's deep ball catch, that was a contested catch that he made in traffic down to get down to the one. Shout out to the official. I mean, dude, like, those guys, it's on the coaches. Those guys are saying, put me back in the game. I can play. I can do it. I'm shocked McConkey came back on the field after halftime, the way he looked. I was absolutely shocked.
I was shocked too, man. Like, yeah.
So shout out to the official receiver. I got a podcast, Dude's a Warrior, and rep the G for sure.
He did rep the G. I mean, we almost had to burn a timeout late because he couldn't get back to the
yeah.
He couldn't get back. Like
yeah.
That was the second time he was seen hobbling on the field.
Yeah. I mean, CJ Smith, I mean, he was there. I don't think he had any targets. He was out in the field.
One play.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think the other thing we have to recognize is Alabama's defense was pretty dang good. And like, let's give them some credit. I mean, like I said, man, it was an evenly matched game. Regardless of what the playoff committee says, and I don't even know how much we want to get into that, those are the 2 best teams in the country on Saturday. It was a heavyweight fight. Those are the 2 best teams, and we had lost to them by 3 points. It was basically an even game. It came down. I mean, I picked 3 plays. You could pick out some other ones, I'm sure, but it's a game of. I mean, they call it a game of inches for a reason. I mean, it was a very tight game, and we didn't make the plays, man. They made some huge ones, and unfortunately, it was some former Georgia players that made 2 big ones in Burton's catch and Tresman Marshall's fumble recovery. So
yeah. You hate to see it. And it's totally true. Like we talk about, the woulda, coulda, shoulda in terms of, executing this, that, or the other. But when it came down to it, like, like you said, he was under duress multiple times. Like that comes down to the offensive line executing. I mean, on one of the plays to Brock, Dom was, supposed to set the edge on the defensive end there. And, he got blown up, and that play ended up getting blown up in the backfield for a tackle for loss. That was a stat that they showed on the screen at one point. The tackles for loss, the negative yardage plays, they kicked our butt in the negative yardage plays. But like I said, the defense did more than enough to get us a win. We just needed to keep them under 30, and we needed to get to 30.
Yeah,
we checked one box and didn't check the other.
I kept, Kim and I were sitting out. We did you change anything? Like we changed what TV we were watching on, and we changed clothes at halftime. By the way,
admittedly, I didn't change anything. I probably should have.
That's all good. I wasn't sure if anything.
I probably should have. I had my usual outfit on. It was so warm. It was like so warm all day. I actually thought about putting on shorts, my game day shorts, but I had my game day pants on. For most of the game, which that was what I was wearing when we went to the games this season.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. I don't even remember why I was saying that.
You said sorry. Kim, you were saying Kim was like, you guys went and changed.
We did go and change. Oh, Oh, shoot, I don't even know if this was. Oh, I kept saying to Kim like we need to force a turnover. Like I kept being like turnover sure would be great right here. And then what I
You
was gonna
just you,
say
you
was
you thought that it was going to come. You thought that there was going to
it
be a
felt like it was
turnover.
coming at some point. And then it was like just like dang 2021 SEC championship game where so in 2021 I can't remember who knocked the ball out. It was either Jordan Davis or Jalen Carter. I remember forced a fumble and Bryce Young got on it. And in this game, I think it was Bullard. On
It
that
was
last
Bullard.
drive, Bullard punched the ball out and Milrow just fell directly on it. It was like, come on.
He happened to fall right on it. Yeah.
Like, come on.
It was
I mean,
it was a beautiful punch out too on a
yeah,
player that we're sorely going to miss in the future.
yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah, that ball could have bounced anywhere. But it bounced right to them.
yeah, yeah,
Just it just wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to be on a number of levels last night, or when we played
whenever it
uh,
was.
on Saturday. I think
Uh,
that man, this season was tailor made for being the last season before we moved to 12 teams. I have my conspiracy theories about that. Um, I think that the SEC really wanted to have some teams in, and they knew that Georgia winning would not have helped, even though Texas is part of the Big 12 this year. I think that they would really like to claim that title next year when Texas joins the conference. So having two teams that are going to be in the SEC next year was important to their interests.
right.
That's my conspiracy theory. But
We're adding
if
another playoff team to the league.
if
Basically, that's
if
your
yeah, we're adding another CFP playoff, and if they win, then we get to claim another national championship, all those kinds of things.
yeah.
Um, if Georgia, all right, so let's talk about the CFP and the absolute like.
Well, should I give my conspiracy theory since you gave yours?
All right,
Or do you want to do that first?
let's talk about your conspiracy
I'll do it
theory.
really
Because
quickly.
yours is about the game, right?
Well, yeah. So let me ask you a question. So let's say a hypothetical situation. Hypothetically, let's say Alabama is playing Tennessee in the SEC championship game. Okay, hypothetically, because I mean, like that would ever happen. I'm just kidding. Although that hasn't ever happened, I don't think. Anyways, I digress. Um, Alabama is playing Tennessee in the SEC championship game. Should I be the replay official as a graduate of the University of Georgia? Do you think that'd be a good idea?
I wouldn't think that you should be, but there's a lot of factors in these things, right? Like
Yeah.
the SEC officials, like the head wasn't Penn Wagers an LSU guy or something like that?
Yeah, that's all. That's what is kind of crazy about college football is like how tribal it is and everything. We've got these guys like in the SEC who all went to these schools that are like
Yeah.
reps and everything. So the guy in the replay booth, everyone's saying why didn't he buzz? Why didn't he review that catch? The guy's a Tennessee grad, so he went to Tennessee. That's the first thing. The second thing is I don't know that this is a big deal, but I think it's kind of weird. Like he works for the company that makes all the software and equipment. It's called DV Sport. Like so, if you when when like you see the ref like go under the hood thing, right? He's looking at the
Yeah, the
replay.
DV Sports on the
It's
side,
DD
right?
Sports on the side, right? That's where that guy works. I mean, you would think, but I said that to Kim today, and she's like, "Well, so you would think he would know everything works, and he'd be able to see the
No,
replay faster."
yeah, that's
So,
my thing. That's my thing.
yeah,
Like everybody talks about how quickly Alabama like snapped the ball or whatever. Like the TV replay hadn't even really been able to process
we
it to show.
we hadn't seen it yet on TV. So,
But
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 had
but
they,
like you sometimes you see them go to the actual like analysis, like
mm,
showing the guys watching the replay. They have like it looks like a NASA space station in there, right? Like
yeah,
they've got all these TVs and all this stuff. They have all these different views. They got the pylon camera, they got the first down marker, they got all these different views, right? So
yeah,
you'd think that that should not be an excuse. And to Kim's point, like he knows how these things work, right?
right. So one would think seems
I
kind of weird.
just, I mean, the thing that frustrates me about these games today, they have a rules and analyst on every single game, and they always like on these questionable calls, like, oh, what do you think about that, Mister? Not have any skin in the game at all,
Hmm.
rules official. What do you think about it? Well, I would review that call, and then they don't do the exact thing that he said. Like it's almost like, oh my
Right.
God, why are you even here?
Yeah. I actually feel like I would be really good at that job. I
Amazing.
like when I'm
Amazing.
watching, like I'm the guy like with my group of friends, like when we were watching from my buddy's house or whatever, it was like, Jim, look at this replay. What do you think? And like I predict, I'm like, okay, here's what they called, here's what I would call, but here's what they're gonna do. Like that's kind of my spiel. I would be an amazing rules analyst. I'm just saying. Anyways, sorry,
I
we
bet
can
you
move on.
would. I bet you would.
We can move on. Um,
Porters are good rules analysts. Got it.
yeah,
Um,
fair.
here's talking about the reviews in general. Like I agree, man. Like that whole situation is crazy. I think what's even crazier is that the guy was involved in some past conspiracy or past controversies in
He was
judgment.
a video analyst for Duke in the early 2000s and was caught up in a I don't know how big of a deal it was. I think it was a big deal because it was right around when Spygate happened with the Patriots, and so people were looking for things. But he admitted to, as being a video coordinator for Duke, sharing game film with Rutgers to help them prepare for Maryland. So, and he admitted to it. Seems kind of weird. I don't know that you want that guy being your replay official, but whatever.
At best, it's a lapse in judgment and calls into question their ability to make sound decision making, if you will,
Yeah,
um, or sound ethical, impartial decision making. At best,
yeah,
is a flaw in their DNA.
yeah.
That to me is a question for that's worthy of the coaches asking, like, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah, agreed.
Um,
So sorry for the off the rails rabbit hole.
but
You wanted to talk about the playoff.
I wanted to talk about what?
You wanted to talk about the playoff, I think, and I took you down that path.
No. I mean, basically, what I hear you saying is that he was a Connor Stallions before there was a Connor Stallions
I,
guy,
I wouldn't go quite that far, but on that along the lines.
which is funny because like nothing happened to that guy back then, and nothing's going to happen to anybody today, except
Did you?
for Michigan took a couple of games off. Like Jim Harbaugh took a couple of games off, and the guy doesn't work there anymore. But I'm sure is going to end up working somewhere because somebody somewhere is going to say those skills are really good.
Right. Did you see the Eli Drinkwitz thing that happened on TV?
Dude, if that's the way that you want to laugh about it on TV, like, oh, that's so funny.
I thought it,
It
I thought it was pretty funny. I thought it
is
was pretty
funny.
funny.
It is funny. It is very funny. I just think that it's like the fact that they're just laughing at it is
Yeah,
even
yeah.
funnier. Like,
Well, that's okay. So on that line, right? Like I think the whole playoff debate came down to okay. So what are you going to do? Are you really going to do four best, or are you going to go do most deserving, right? Which I feel like they went in the middle. I don't think they really did either, personally. But we
they
can get
didn't
to
do
that.
either.
We can get to that. But the
No,
funny
they
thing
didn't
is,
do either. They didn't do either.
if you're talking most deserving, like how about we leave out the team that cheated and like admitted they cheated and suspended their coach for cheating? Like that was never like came up really. That seems kind of weird, but
I mean, there are postseason bans that are levied out to teams for cheating.
yeah, yeah. I I mean Georgia basketball, right? Like sorry Fletcher, but like like
Georgia basketball minute.
back when we were in school. Okay, Georgia basketball man, dude. Georgia basketball had a crazy like 17-point comeback against Florida State. By
Oh
the
wow,
way,
Florida State.
yeah. Oh, God, bad omens. Who saw that? Shit. Tuesday night, the Dogs take on Georgia Tech. First, I don't know how many students get a pretty sweet Spike T-shirt. So head out to the
Oh, the
Steg.
Spike t-shirt does look amazing.
It's pretty awesome. So head to the Steg and clean old fashioned hate on the hardwood Tuesday night.
Josh Brooks, put Spike on a shirt more often.
Why can't alumni buy the student giveaway T-shirt? I'd pay money for like every shirt. Like the shirt giveaways these days are like so amazing. Like why can't I'll pay for it. I'll buy that. Someone needs to hook us up with that. Anyways, sorry.
You know how Peter Millar, they have like the standing dog, like the official dog logos. Can we get like a Spike logo?
Yeah. Yes. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Okay, so
Or the Onward Reserve, if you're looking for a Classic City Collective partner.
right, right. So I felt, again, being naive, because again, Bama gets their own rules. I thought Georgia and Alabama should be a package deal for the playoff, saying like you put Georgia and Alabama in because, hey, those were the two best teams. We may not seed them 1 and 2, but if those two teams played to that score on a neutral field in a game that was that close, they're not too far apart from each other. So they should both be in. Like that's what I thought should happen. Not, I thought that should happen. By the time, it was coming up, I knew it wasn't going to happen, but that's what I thought should happen. So I thought, therefore, if you're not going to do that, then you're not putting the four best teams. So you should go most deserving. I will say, I think it's awful that Florida State got left out. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're better than Alabama. But with the way they have done this in the past, I think it's ridiculous. And I
Yeah, there's
said,
no precedent for what happened.
what I said in our preview was I put Alabama in the category of needs help. I thought someone else, I said Alabama winning against Georgia would not be enough to get them in. They needed another domino to fall. And I believed that. I believed that when we recorded. After I didn't actually think we were going to lose. And when they beat us, that slowly started to deteriorate because I was just like, oh, the SEC is not going to get left out. They're not going to put us in. And when I saw Texas was the third team, I was like, oh yeah, that's Bama.
Yeah,
Bama's going to be 4.
when you allowed Texas to jump Florida State, that's when things became pretty obvious to me.
They shouldn't do the week to week rankings, honestly, because they put themselves into a corner and like the whole thing. Georgia had been number 1 for what 4 straight weeks, and you're going to drop. We dropped 5 spots, and clearly you're not doing who's better because you're. So we're saying that Alabama's better than Florida State, but Georgia isn't. Like,
yeah, that part is kind of messed up. I mean, here is how good Georgia is, Jim.
mm-hmm.
Georgia is so good that just beating them allows two teams that are outside of the last weeks before the championship, two teams that are not in the Final Four to jump into the top 4.
And one of them with a transitive property win over Georgia.
Both of those teams also played each other in the regular season, and one of them beat the other. And that's how good and that's how valuable a Georgia scalp was this year. And to me, the most ridiculous aspect of it is that we're saying that Texas, because they beat Alabama, is better than Georgia. In my opinion, we beat Texas on a neutral field. I think that we were favored against Bama. We're going to be favored against pretty much everybody, with maybe the question mark of Michigan. I think that we would be favored on a neutral field against all those teams. I think that someone like had run the numbers or run the analysis that we would be favored against all of them. But
I think we would. I think we'd be favored.
I just like, you're telling me that Georgia loses by 3 points on a neutral field in a championship game after they've been number 1, 29 straight wins, and suddenly a 3-point loss to Alabama puts them as the 6th best team in the country?
Yeah, you dropped 5 spots.
Is that what we're really saying? Like, is that really what we think? It feels like that they're just giving Florida State a consolation prize by putting them at 5.
Yeah.
It just makes me sick to my stomach that they left out Florida State. Alabama should be sitting at home, and I think that Georgia should have been at 4. I think that we're better than everybody. I think that we are the better team than most of these other teams. And just because we lost to Alabama, they lost to Texas.
I know. Yeah. We lost the wrong week.
We lost the wrong week. Yeah. Had Georgia played Oregon this year, or have we played Oklahoma, and lost and beat Alabama in the same situation, what would happen to us in
We're
that
in.
situation? Would we? I don't know.
Yes, we would be. That's what's kind of silly about it. I do hate it.
Here's the crazy thing. If we had played Oklahoma and beaten them, and we were supposed to this year,
Mm-hmm.
and we lost to Alabama, where would we be then?
So, because then you've got Georgia lost to Alabama, who lost to Texas, who lost to Oklahoma, but Georgia beat Oklahoma. Is this your scenario?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, I think we might be in the playoff, honestly. Like, I'm not even joking.
The only thing that hurt us is our quote unquote like strength of schedule, right? We
Because
were
I think
30.
I think then
But
you could argue
we played the same amount of teams. We played the same amount of teams that everybody else did in the top 25. Like
yeah. I mean, I think you could argue at that point. I think you could argue that because Texas, like you could do transitive property the other way. You could say, well, Texas lost to Oklahoma, who lost to Georgia, so we can put Georgia in. And I think it would have been Georgia and Alabama get in. If we had played and beat Oklahoma, I think Georgia would have been 4, Alabama 3,
thanks a lot, SEC.
Washington 2, and Michigan 1. I think that's what happened. But I mean, dude,
but then you would have left out Florida State at 13 and 0.
I'm still not saying what should have been done. I'm saying what would have happened. What would happen?
Based on what they did?
Exactly. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Based on what they did.
Based on what they did. Yeah. I think leaving Florida State out is ridiculous. So here's the thing. Like for me personally, like it's like don't put me in charge because you guys don't want to hear what I think about some of this stuff. Because I think it should be in a 14 playoff. I've always thought it should be most deserving. I thought 4 best was dumb because you can't like it's a dumb concept. Like personally, like whatever. Like so to me, Alabama should not be in because they lost to Texas. We already know on the field that Texas was better than Alabama on that day. Why does Alabama get another chance? So like if it was up to
it was a home game.
Yeah. So like if you can't beat a team at home, how are you suddenly better? I just whatever. So like I think the quote right thing to do was Michigan. Like I think Georgia and Alabama get left out. I think you do all conference champions, and Alabama gets the short end of the stick because they lost to someone else who's already in. Right? Like that's it for me. I would have put. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter what they order because I mean, frankly, Florida State's going to lose in the first round. Right. But like, dude, you went 13-0. They beat LSU. Like, you know, they went 2-0. They went 2-0 against the SEC. They beat LSU and they beat Florida. I mean, LSU has a Heisman finalist quarterback.
Right.
I mean, and I think football is a team sport, and for them to come out there and say
that's all right.
You lost your quarterback, like I feel like it's a dangerous precedent to set.
Let's hover on that for a second.
Yeah.
Like we have told everybody for a decade that if you just win out, you're in.
Yeah.
If you win out, you're in. Kirk Herbstreit was quoted.
Yeah.
Hey, Florida State, just win out and you're in a few years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Hey, Kirk, we won out. Where's my CFP ticket? Oh, sorry. You guys are out. You got a hurt quarterback? I'm sorry. You're out.
It's
like, get the heck out of here, Kirby, and get your dog. Take your dog with you.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna sound like such an old man.
Actually, you know what? We'll keep the dog. You get the hell out.
This is a total like old man get up my lawn. But like, what are we telling our kids? We're telling our kids that one guy is more important than everyone else. And like, why do you want your kid to play in team sports? Why do you have your kids do a group project at school? Right?
Yeah, seriously.
Like it's the team. It's the team, and everyone gets the same grade, and everyone gets the same results of the team. There's no I in team. Like, you know, it's just I think it's disgusting. I think it's disgusting. I think it's horrible.
It is. It's horrible. Like if you're Mike Norvell or whatever, like, you know, I honestly, it's frankly like who are we to say who the quarterback is? So if you're telling me that if he suddenly decided to bench Jordan Travis, like because the quarterback's not playing anymore,
yeah.
Let's say he's academically ineligible. All right. So does that mean that now all of a sudden, like the team doesn't get to reap the rewards of their hard work thus far?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, let's say he tests positive for PEDs. Like, is that suddenly like a disqualifier? It just enters in so many variables that just didn't need to be there. It should just be, hey, did you guys win all your games? Oh, you did. Oh, wow, you're undefeated. There's 2 other undefeateds right here.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? You ran the table in your conference. Like, here you go.
Yeah. I but
their defense has looked great, man. Like
their defense is very good. I mean, you never know, dude. I mean, okay, like we're saying, like they would wax people. I don't know, man. Like the Big Ten, like could they beat Michigan? I mean, TCU beat Michigan. I mean, it,
what they're saying is that you, Mr. Head Coach, you have no ability to overcome this player being out, and we're not even going to give you an option to figure it out. Like that
yeah.
level of subjectiveness is like even worse than when we were at the, allowing people to vote on who the champion was.
Yeah. At this point, let's
How
just go
how
back
did
to the
how did
bowls.
how did your dad deal with this crap, man? Like this is absolute nonsense.
So that's it. That's the thing. Is like, what's fun about college football? Arguing. And if you just send everyone to a bowl, then you just argue about who's the best. It's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing.
Is that what he said?
Oh, that's what I say.
Oh, okay. I just
Um,
I just can't. I just can't with all of it.
so I know something that Josh said, dog stats, was hopefully I'm getting this right. His point was something along the lines of if you put any other team there other than Alabama,
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
they're not it's Florida State. So like if Georgia was the reverse, so Georgia had come in 11-1 and beats Alabama to go 12-1, Georgia gets left out. If it's Georgia, if it's LSU, because I think some people are saying like SEC, and I was something with Marler. Marler is trying to like be the victim again or something. It's like whatever, Marler. It's like, it's like no, like it's Alabama. It is that like that's the problem. But whatever.
Marlar's the
Yeah.
ultimate bet hedger.
Mhm. We love you,
Coming out
Chris.
coming out
Friend of the show.
predicting that Georgia's going to win by 10 points. Like
Yeah,
you have nowhere to go, but up from there.
right. Uh,
Strategery.
strategy. Okay, two quick things, and then we can go back to whatever. Coaches over unders. Thank you, Coach, for tracking them all season long. I know we still have a bowl game to play. So we got one more round of over unders, and then plus the preseason ones. I think will come around. Some of those are done. We already know, but we both went 4-4. So no change in the standings this week.
A tight game, a tight coaches over unders.
That's right. That's right. So shout out, Coach. Appreciate you. Thank you for submitting and checking as always. And then just shout out to our sponsors. So unfortunately, no new Georgia 2023 CFP watch on the way from Oxia Time, but thanks to Oxia Time for being the presenting sponsor again. And hey, you know what? The dogs still went back to back. You can still go out and get either of those watches. Maybe you're waiting for the 3P to come around to get a trio of watches, but you can still get two. The dogs were the only team to ever go back to back in the 4-team playoff era. That will never change. So head over to oxiatime.com. You can use the code HunkerDown to get 10% off an Oxia timepiece. Then always head over to Homefield. Use code HunkerDown there as well for great vintage apparel. And then always check out workingwebmedia.com/dogs if you need help with your online presence or website. Okay. What do we have anything else?
Oh man. We get the ultimate I guess I don't know. Has there ever been a 5 versus 6 bowl game that's going to pit two teams against each other where the fan bases are just so utterly disgusted at everything?
Have you seen the picture from the Zoom conference with Kirby and Mike Norvell?
Oh, I was gonna say I feel like that we're all like the guy in the light blue zip up or whatever.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
he just literally he saw the things and he just got up and left.
So they had like a coach's Zoom for the Orange Bowl, and both Kirby and Norvell just like both looked like they did not want to be there. Like they were so annoyed. Like I don't want to be here. Actually, on that note, on the reaction videos, have you seen the video of Michigan reacting to Bama being announced as 4?
Oh my gosh, I have not seen any of these. I guess
Oh my gosh.
I haven't been paying attention. I guess
Okay, so
I only saw the Norvell and the Mike or the Norvell like with his team when they were announcing it, and the guy stood up and walked out.
So it's basically like it was actually so at that same moment, right? The video of the Michigan like ballroom, and they're all like giddy and like excited, like what's gonna happen, and then it says Alabama, and they're like, oh, like there's like a groan in the room, and then slow applause. I was like, oh man.
I mean, I felt bad for my buddy Brian, who is a big Michigan fan, who was with us at the Kentucky tailgate.
Yeah.
I texted him. I guess that he hadn't even like seen or heard like who they were playing or whatever.
Hmm.
I texted him. I said, "Man, sorry, bro. You guys got the worst luck." And he was like, "What do you mean?" And then he texted me a few minutes later. Goes, "Oh my God."
Bro, you're not sitting there watching the show? Definitely not a
I
SEC
don't. I
football
think
fan.
that I'm sure that he probably was just overly like emphasized
I
on
mean,
the
I guess
fact
when
that
you're number one like that, it
he was
doesn't.
ranked number
Yeah,
one.
you knew you're gonna be
They're
number one.
undefeated, and I'm sure he, like everybody, just kind of figured that Alabama was not going to get in because Florida State was undefeated,
Right.
and
Yep.
Texas had beaten Alabama, and ugh,
Yeah.
mm, mm.
All right. I do have feel like there's one thing I checked to see if I'd written anything down. There's one other thing I wrote down. We talked about Thorson, but we talked about his punting prowess. We did go. I know we didn't make the playoff, but we had an entire regular season plus SEC championship with no punts returned.
I have a feeling, Jim, we're going to go an entire season without any punts returned,
Hmm.
which has to be has to be some kind of record. Maybe
Yeah.
that's a Jason Hasty conversation. I don't know.
Hmm. Hmm. Could be. Could be. Could be. Well, all right. We knew the run was going to end someday. It stings that it ended here. Hate that it was to those guys in that building, which I think is what we were talking about when I was like, dude, we need to restart recording. Um, but I hate that. But 29
Hate that it had two Georgia dogs
to,
making impact plays for sure.
yeah,
Hey, but you know what, Jim? Like Alabama's SEC championship built by Georgia.
built by Georgia. Couldn't do it without two of our transfers. Um, but 29 in a row, the longest win streak in the history of the SEC. With these extra games coming in the playoff going forward, I mean, we'll talk about this in the offseason, but college football is going to change big time. And I think that what the committee did here is setting up some precedents for it to change big time. And we can talk about that in the offseason. But um, the only team to ever go back to back in the history of the 14 playoff is over. So that will never happen. We'll always have that.
Which should
Um,
probably give you some hat tips to what it's going to be like in the 12 team playoff.
yeah. Yeah. Right. Exactly. So heck of a run. Something we had waited our lives for. And man, it was a lot of fun.
It was fun. I'm drinking from a national championship cup
Nice. Nice.
2021 right now.
Uh, yeah. Yeah.
I think
Heck,
that
heck of a run.
I think that you had messaged something to the group chat at one point. You said you were quoting Big George. It's hard to win a football game.
It is hard to win a football game, let alone 29 in a row. Um, yeah, a heck of a run, man. And I'm not, I'm not going to I'm actually kind of surprised at how I'm feeling. I guess those are the spoils of winning two in a row is,
Yeah.
you know,
Imagine what you would feel today if, we had lost to TCU or if we had
yeah,
lost to Alabama in 21. Imagine how you
exactly.
would feel right now. Like
Exactly.
I mean, next year none of this matters, which, unfortunately it just is what it is. Like
Yeah.
it's just a seed. Our reward or penalization next year would have been a home game. Like
a home playoff game. Yeah.
sign me up. Although we would have been playing Ole Miss, which is like
There's no way they would have done that. That's the other thing. They're gonna mess with the seeds I think we would have Penn State. But
okay, well, so here's the thing. Here's the thing. If you're saying that they're going to mess with the seeds, then that's just going to make things even worse
dude,
because
they're gonna do whatever the heck they want. We found that out yesterday.
I mean, fair. Tough, but fair. But
Oh.
at the same time, they're going to have to factor in like, okay, so they take the CFP rankings week to week, right? Or like whenever they start. So, but to a
Mm,
certain extent, like
mm,
the polls still matter. So like you can't just pull out of your out of your rear end,
You can't.
oh,
You can't.
no, you can't.
You can't
Because,
move the number one team down 5 spots and move number 8 to 4.
okay, so the precedence here is at the top. The precedence here has all about been rejiggering the top, right?
Yeah,
So if you're talking about rejiggering the top, nothing really changed below, right?
I'll tell you though.
How can you how can you regroup Penn
Yeah,
State, Ole Miss, and Missouri
I'll
based off of an SEC championship game?
I'll answer it. So here's the weird thing about the way it's going to work is there are additional rules applied. So it's not just the top 12 teams in the ranking. You can be in the top 12 and not make the playoff. It's possible.
Dear.
Because it's like the conference champions make it. And we'll probably have to do a whole deep dive into this in the offseason. But like if you win
So
your
like
conference, you're in.
Conference USA?
The top group of 5 champion makes the playoff. So this year, Liberty would be in the playoff.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. And then the other thing is you have to win your conference to be one of those top 4 seeds. So let's rewind back to 2021 and put it in the 12-team playoff, even though Georgia was the 3 seed in that playoff. So we were a top 4 team. We would not have been the 3 seed in the playoff. We would not have gotten a bye because we didn't win the SEC. Alabama did. So they would have had to drop us to 5. So they can't. So they will rejigger based on that. So first they figure out who's in, and then I think they reseed, something like that, based on the rules, just alone. So it's going to be weird. It's going to be weird.
It's going to be weird. Someone's going to get left out. But frankly, like I feel like that, and it's not going to be enough because at some point there's going to be a question mark about Texas or Alabama or Michigan or Penn State or some of these blue bloods that get left out of the 12-team playoff, and it's just going to start an avalanche of trying to expand it even more.
Well, because then we're going to go to 16.
Then we're going to 16. Yeah,
it's coming.
Like
it's coming. It's only a matter of time. It's more money, man.
It's more money.
Why?
And then I saw the game. I saw the game set up for next year. Like the championship isn't until the end of January now.
Okay. I wonder, John, what are the odds that Kim is still listening to this episode right now?
0.
She's totally goes to this and comes back to me. Because our anniversary is in the middle of January. And so like we're totally gonna have like a national championship game like on our anniversary coming up.
But that's like a perfect anniversary gift for you.
Oh yeah, that's exactly.
Is a trip to Las Vegas for the national championship, right? Like
totally, yeah, wherever. It's exactly what she wants to do. Although, like I told you, man, she was into this game. Man, she slammed the door.
She slammed the door.
It was awesome. It was pretty awesome. Like she was leaving the porch to go inside and slam the door, and I was kind of like, man, that's my wife.
My wife slammed the garage door leaving because I was yelling at the TV too much. And she was yelling 0%.
Good times. Melissa, Kelly, Lori, don't tell Kim about that conversation. If you heard
I, for one, am heavily looking forward to the pictures of you and Kim with an Elvis in Las Vegas at some point wearing a Georgia My God, a Podcast hat.
Hey, we can go we can have our vows renewed at the national championship.
There you go. See, these are the things that you get now because we're now having to play to almost the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's gonna be weird. It's gonna be weird.
Man, I'll say this, like I know the season's not over, but like, the run that we've had since we started the podcast has been pretty amazing. It's been fun to do it with you, and I feel like that this conversation was more cathartic than even like any of the stuff that I've done before. So
agreed.
If you don't have someone like a Jim and a John to talk to each other, like just go talk to someone and just joke about things and talk through it. And I told Jim, I was like, what did I say before the episode?
When I was like, dude, we've got it recorded.
No. It was earlier. It was earlier today.
Dude, I mean, we had been talking for like 30 minutes before we started today.
I know. Oh, I said I had asked you if you had solicited questions because because I thought that this was going to be a great episode to get questions from everybody.
You're like, did you solicit questions? I was, I did when I read your text,
and you're just like you're just in the zone. It's like, no, this is a review, dude.
I read your text and I was like, are we on the same podcast? Like, this is a review episode.
I thought it would have been a good episode, but maybe in retrospect, I don't know how many questions from Craig we could have answered in this one. But
poor Craig. I'm going to stop attacking Craig on Twitter. I'm sorry, Craig, but it is fun. It is fun.
But my response to you was, I thought this was a therapy session.
I think, and hey, and I think it was.
I think it was.
So hopefully,
we didn't even talk about our bourbons. We didn't even talk about our bourbons in this therapy session. We don't normally do bourbons during the reviews.
We don't. I went with Maker's Mark French Oak 46. Just went with an Old Faithful.
So. And Old Faithful. I went with the bourbon that I bought for the weekend, which was the oh my gosh, the Angel's Envy.
Yeah.
The Angel's Envy store pick that I talked about on the preview episode. I ended up getting it. And then I threw a little bit of Eagle Rare in it.
For those who are not watching on YouTube, which, hey, like, subscribe on YouTube. Hey, by the way, if you happen to come across with anything, subscribe and share with your friends. Anyways, if you're not watching, I was literally just wiping tears off my face because I was laughing so hard just now. So thank you for that. That's pretty awesome. Someday we'll talk about the bourbon that I bought this weekend. I'm not ready to talk about it yet. And someday we'll drink it. It has been stored and will be drank someday in the future.
Someday. I look forward to that day, Jim.
Me too.
All right. Well, this was cathartic.
It was. I hope it was cathartic for those listening. I hope everyone enjoys it. And I can't overstate how much we appreciate everyone who's come along for this ride with us. I know we've talked about it, but we went from a random text message like the week of the Arkansas game in 2020. Hey, John, you want to do a podcast? What? And to have the engagement that we have is it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It means a lot. So thank you to all for enjoying with us.
Yep, and we've got another game. We've got an Orange Bowl trip to Miami to talk about, and we have an undefeated team that we can basically spike the football on the CFP's committee to a certain degree, which I don't know how I feel about that, but we have no other option but to do it. So let's prove everybody wrong and go out and smash some Seminoles.
I like it. Down for that.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
College Savings Iowa is now iSave 529, and it can do more than take your child to college. It's their passport to a bright future, because funds can be used for K-12 tuition, trade schools, graduate degrees, books, and everything they need to get anywhere they want to go. Register by September 30th at iowa529contest.com for a chance to win a $5,290 contribution. iSave 529, for every child, for any adventure.